invisible friends out there in YouTube land. My name is Haley and I am the Bookish Stitcher. Welcome back to my channel, or if you are brand new here, hey, howdy, hi, welcome. Just wanted to do a quick stitch with me video. I call them sit and stitch. So if you want to grab a project to work on, grab something to drink and get cozy, we'll get started. Welcome. So here I am with the Cats Under the Sun piece that I've been working on for a couple of months now. I am really enjoying the bright, like Crayola type colors on this. And when I started this, for some reason I decided I wanted to do all of the colors in order of how they appeared. So right now I'm in this dark navy blue. It was the pupil here in the sun's eyes. So just got to finish. It's green here, over here, and some over here. And then that color's all done. So I figured I'd just sit down, stitch this piece with you, and get that color out of the way. It is number 17 on this kit. The color is 823 for the DMC. All right. So this is my last pre-recorded video that I made before I went on vacation. I did 2 weeks worth. I just wanted to make sure. I don't know what my week is going to look like when I get back. We're coming home Sunday, and then I go right back to work on Monday. So I just needed to I just want to make sure that I had videos uploaded so that I could, stay relevant and make sure that I am in the habit of shooting and editing videos on a weekly basis. So since I wouldn't be home until Sunday and I wanted to upload on Monday, I wasn't sure when I'd have time to do that video on Monday. So I just did 2 weeks worth just for my own peace of mind. So I'm sorry if this is no longer relevant, but I think this one's going up Wednesday. But I'm not sure. Been thinking I had a planner and I was trying to plan out everything that I needed to plan it, and it's too small. It's one of the 4x6, 5x7 size. It's really small. So when we go vacation, we always go to a bookstore. So I'm going to see if they have any larger planners that will work so I can keep myself organized and on a schedule. But I just figured on this one today, while I'm stitching it, I'd tell you a story that means a lot to me and almost nothing to the person that it's about. My mother's father, who we call Papa, everybody calls him Papa, except for the people who call him Jake. So, story within the story, number one. My grandfather's last name is Jacobs. And so everybody who I knew who didn't call him Papa, or his family called him Junior, called him Jake. So for a long portion of my life, too long, if I'm to tell the truth, I thought my grandfather's name was Jake Jacobs. It is not. But anywho, my grandfather used to work in a meat processing plant, and every year they'd have a Christmas party, and for that Christmas party, they would make bologna loaf. Or he would make bologna loaf. So he'd get a loaf of Wonder Bread and a thing of stick bologna, some mayonnaise, and some pickles. And he'd get a meat grinder and he'd put the bologna through, and then he'd put the pickles through, and he'd mix the whole thing together with mayonnaise. And then he'd make the sandwiches and stack them back into the container, the Wonder Bread bag. And he'd take them and people would eat them up. They were the favorite thing of the Christmas party, was bologna loaf sandwiches. So when my grandfather left that job, he got a new job at a new new factory. And so his first Christmas party rolls around and he makes bologna loaf. So he goes and he gets the Wonder Bread, and he gets like 2 or 3 loaves of it. And he gets the stick bologna, and he gets the mayonnaise, and he gets the dill pickles. And he makes the bologna loaf, and he stacks it all up in the sandwich bags, and he goes, and nobody eats it. Which, at this point, I feel awful. I was not yet born, by the way. I'm just hearing this story through my mother. And she says nobody ate his bologna loaf. I felt so sad. I felt so sad for him because I can imagine how much work it must take to make bologna loaf and clean a meat grinder and make sandwiches and fit them back into the bag. And to take all that time and energy and have nobody eat your bologna loaf. Like, I felt awful for him. So I go up. I don't remember how old I was when I heard this story, but I was younger than 12. But I went up and I said, Papa, I'm so sorry about the bologna loaf. And he's like, what are you talking about? So I said, like, you made the bologna loaf and nobody ate it. And he never made bologna loaf ever again. Ever again. He brought the uneaten bologna loaf home, he put it in the freezer, and he took it to lunch with him until they were all gone. Anyway, no more bologna loaf. And he says, I have no idea what you're talking about. He didn't remember this traumatic experience that I have carried with me for the rest of my life, that I wasn't even there for. I have carried with me for the rest of my life. And I'm sure if I went over to his house right now and said, Papa, do you remember the bologna loaf? He'd again say no. He would have no recollection of the bologna loaf. And I don't know whether or not I should be happy for him because he doesn't remember the most traumatizing event of his life, according to my life. Or I should be happy for him because he can just let it go. But that is the story of my grandfather and the bologna loaf. One of the most memorable stories of my life. To tell some more stories. I did this wrong. Alright, well, I'm just gonna kind of cheat. Right here. I didn't pull my strand back quick enough. So we're just gonna cheat it. When I was 4, there was the first war in Iraq, and every night, it felt like every night, I'm sure it wasn't, but every night that I was at my grandparents' for dinner, the news was on. And Tom Brokaw was on the news at that point. And he would talk about, the status of the war, and I have no conception of, news anchors at that time. So I decided that Tom Brokaw was the president, and that I wanted to marry the president of the United States. Which is only important because I decided I was going to marry him after I asked my dad to marry me, being 4 years old, as all 4-year-olds do, or at least according to my psychologist class. My dad said, "No, you gross, that's disgusting." I went to my grandfather and I asked him if he'd marry me, and he said, "Of course I'll marry you." I'm like, "Thanks, Papa." But then Tom Brokaw was on the news, and I decided I wanted to marry him instead. Oh. It's a long history of flitting from man to man, I guess. That's not what I do. It's just a joke. But those are some stories of my papa from my formative years. I feel like the bologna loaf story just like taught me a lot of empathy. It's not really that big of a story, right? Man made some bologna loaf, nobody wanted to eat it. He doesn't remember it. But man, oh man. I've heard some other stories like that from other people, and I of course can't remember them right now. But as soon as I turn off the camera, I'll be like, oh yeah, that story about those people that I've forgotten about. Yeah, I was editing my last video and I realized like I've been kind of sad in the last few videos I've shot, and I was trying to think of some funny stories that I could share to kind of lighten the mood. There's also the time that I swallowed a pin when I was younger. My mom had gotten me a bunch of shirts or sweaters at Riches, I think it was then. So this old like general store kind of place. Anyway, at Riches, and back then, in the very early 90s, which is back then, but anyway, they would the tags would be put on with a straight pin. And so I was playing in my room and I was going through all of my new sweaters that my mom got me, and they were like the epitome of like the early 90s sweater. They were all acrylic and brightly colored. I had one with Scotty dogs on them. It was red and had Argyle and had Scotty dogs on them. That's the one I can remember the most vividly, but there's definitely like that one was black and red. And there was definitely one that I think maybe had hearts on it or something, but it was pink and teal and purple. But anyway, there's a bunch of them. And so I got them out and I saw the tag was still on them. And I'm like, it's okay, Mr. Sweater. I'll save you because I'm 4. And I'm gonna play that I'm a superhero. So I go and I'm getting the paper out of the sweater and I can't figure it out. So I put it in my mouth and I grab it out with my teeth. And then I swallow the pin. And I run out to the living room. I'm like, Mom, I swallowed a pin. And she's like, yep, sure, that's fine, whatever. Not believing me. And she's like, want some water? I'm like, no, it'll get stuck. Well, it was already stuck, but anyway. So they took me to the emergency room because, you know, she did actually end up believing me. I don't remember half the story, but anyway. So she took me to the emergency room, and they said she swallowed a pin. And the doctor said she probably just thinks that she swallowed a pin. She didn't actually swallow a pin. Oops. My mom said, no, if she said she swallowed a pin, she swallowed a pin. So they gave me an x-ray, and I had swallowed a pin, and it got stuck in my throat, somewhere beyond my tonsils. So they had to remove it surgically. And the only person who could have done it, I don't know if it's because it had to be a special ENT or what, but the only person who could have done the surgery was at his daughter's 8th birthday party? 6th or 8th, I can't remember. And I just remember that he came in and said that I ruined his daughter's birthday party. And I'm like 3 or 4. And I know this happened. Because my mother has corroborated it. So it's not just something that I made up. But anyway, they took the pin out of my mouth. Or out of my throat. And I never swallowed anything again. I do, however, still use my teeth to open things that I shouldn't use. Like, I don't know, soda bottles. I don't know why. I think it's just because I'm not supposed to. And sometimes we all like to be a little rebellious and do things that we're not supposed to. I know that I was missing some floss on this kit. A couple of the colors I didn't quite finish. And so I was thinking I'd go to the craft store before I left and pick up the 2 skeins. So I'm missing this light blue here and more of this yellow. I don't really need the yellow right now because it's the backstitching color, and I'm not sure how I'm backstitching it. But then I thought maybe they have a quilt store in town where we're going on vacation. And my mom quilts, so I thought it might be a neat place for us to just go and look around, and maybe they'll have some DMC floss that I can find the right color for. So that I think would be fun. I'll probably bring that up to her. It's not far from where we're staying. I had been looking up, so I heard about Stitch New England, so I looked that up. That's a few hours away from where I am, but it looks like a really beautiful store. And so then I'm like, well, I wonder if there's anything close to where we go on vacation. And there isn't really, and even the ones that they do have, they're all quilt shops. But this particular quilt shop is on the same road as where we stay, so I thought it might be nice to have a little outing there, just to see what we can see. You know, we don't have a lot of really cool like sewing shops. Neither of the fabric stores that we have around us sell stitching kits. They do have some of those, like the plastic ones that I always think of with latch hook, like a plastic square grid that you can use for like ornaments or keychains. So I have some of those kits, but not much. I mean, that's where I used to get a lot of my cross stitch stuff, and then I guess we're talking, let's see, I graduated high school in 2005. So, and I could find kits in a few places that we went to. So obviously the fabric store that we had in town, and then a craft store in a town we went to that's about an hour away. We went there pretty often for a while. They had good restaurants there. They had better restaurants than we had in town. And we'd always stop on our way home and walk around. They had a Target there. We didn't have a Target, so that was exciting. They had linens and things, which was amazing until they went out of business. I bought my very first set of dishes at Linens and things. They were very pretty, and I miss them. But anywho, did that, and then we went to a Michael's. They had a lot of cross-stitch kits there. So that's where I got most of what I had. That was outside the 5x7 size that I got through the Dimensions kits. So I really enjoyed going there. They also had a lot of beading stuff, and that's back still when I wanted to do jewelry making, which I'm not quite precise enough for. I can braid a friendship bracelets and put some seed beads in it. I can do a macrame bracelet and put some beads in it. I can't make earrings. I can't make a real necklace. I think part of it was I didn't have the right tools. I also didn't have the patience for it. It's a little too fiddly, I think, for my personal taste, but it's also really expensive to get into. I feel like cross-stitch is an expensive hobby to start, especially if you buy the kits, whether they're printed or counted. Buying the kit is pretty cost-effective. You just need some scissors, and you're kind of good to go. And then it hooks into you, and then just like every other hobby, it's very expensive. But as far as in the world of crafting, I think it's one of the cheaper hobbies to take up. But jewelry making is not cheap. No ma'am. But quilting isn't cheap. My mom tried to teach me how to quilt when I was in high school. That's how I ended up doing cross stitch. First she tried to teach me how to sew, and I found it to be very boring. I'm sure I wouldn't find it to be that way now, but I was doing a trip around the world quilt, so where I was, it was all it's all straight lines, and then you cut them, and then you sew more long lines. And I found it to be very dull. It's a very good quilt to start with for somebody who doesn't know how to quilt, but I was bored. So then she taught me how to macrame. And I made all of the bracelets and anklets and necklaces, and I never wanted to move forward to anything else. So I stuck with that. And then she's the one who suggested that I started cross stitch, just because I wanted something to do. And I always find working with my hands is a better thing to do than some things. Don't get me wrong, like, I loved playing Zoo Tycoon when I was in high school. Like, my mom got that for me one year for Christmas, and I don't think she saw me for the rest of Christmas break. I love building things in games, but because I like it so much, it ends up being a bit of a time suck. And I'd much rather do something that I get out of, right? So play a video game, and this is just the way I think of it, and you don't have anything to show for your time except for that you spent time on it. Like, you can complete levels and you can get imaginary trophies, but you can't hang that on your wall when you're done. I like hobbies that I have something to show for this time I spent on it. Case in point. That's not talking down to anybody who does enjoy video games. Lord knows my husband plays plenty of video games. He's upstairs doing that right now. And that's fine. He doesn't 100% understand my hobby, and I don't understand his at all. But that's, I think, what it's good for us that we have our own separate interests and we're not so hung up with each other that we have to spend every waking moment together and we have to do the exact same thing all the time. We end up doing stuff in the same space a lot, or I'll sit there and I will watch him play video games and make fun of every time he dies, which I think is one of my more favorite ways of spending time with him. Shoot, I should not have done that way. Oh well. But to each couple their own. That's what I always say. Alright. Got this one and 4 more over there. So I hope that everybody is having a great day and that you have some time to dedicate to stitching. I know that my day never really feels complete until I get some floss and canvas in my hands. That's how I know I made it through the day. That's how I know I'm starting the day. I like to stitch in the morning and watch some floss tube and drink some coffee and start my day that way. And I like to end my day stitching and drinking some tea or something equally relaxing. And watching 90 Day Fiancé or the Real Housewives or the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial. Oh man, I don't know what to do about that anymore. But anyway, thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate this time that we spent together. I hope that you enjoyed yourself, and if you're new here, you like and subscribe down below. I do also have an Instagram where I post the daily progress that I make on the other kits that I'm working on, so you can see what I'm doing just beyond this. These scissors are so finicky sometimes. But I'm all done with that color, and I'm really excited to start getting into these greens down here, because I think that's really gonna, that's when I'm gonna feel like I'm really like done with this. Or getting on my way to there is when I start getting into all this green grass. These shapes have been just so fun to stitch, all the curly cues. Really enjoyed that. But again, thank you everybody for coming, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day full of stitching. Bye!